What's up guys, it's the Cheapster here back with another video. So lately I would say there's been some pretty big issues going on with delivery driving. Pretty much all over the country. In the comments I've been hearing that for most people delivery driving has slowed down or the pay has gone down. And that's not just for one app, that's for Grubhub, DoorDash and Uber Eats all together. And now every single area is different, so you may be raking it in your area. It might not be bad where you are, but in the comments and in my own personal experience for my area, it seems like things have really kind of dropped off. So it's been kind of difficult when there's less orders and the pay is lower. Not to mention that some of us have been deactivated in error and nobody will get back to them to fix their account, no matter how hard they try, even if they did work for them for 4 years. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Grubhub. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some reasons why you might want to find some other work, some possible alternatives that you could do that aren't delivery driving, and some tips on keeping your work in demand so that you can make the most money for your time possible. So starting out with number one, let's talk about some reasons that you might want to find some other work instead of delivery driving. And the first reason I would say is to keep a safe income. Now I'm sure a lot of you guys have already heard from my video. If you haven't, go check out my video on how I got deactivated with Grubhub. This is pretty much what I've been saying to people for years, that you have to be careful just relying on one of these apps because something can come out of the blue, even something in error like what happened to me. And if something like that happens, if that's the only thing you have, you're just going to be out of luck with having no income all of a sudden. And even if it's not a personal deactivation, you had situations like Postmates where it got shut down. And sure, Postmates did get switched over to Uber Eats, but I heard from a lot of people who either had Uber Eats accounts or just various reasons that they couldn't get switched to Uber Eats from Postmates. And there's a lot of other reasons you may have here for why you want to make sure that you're working different jobs to keep a safer income. Not to mention you might find better jobs anyway that pay better, and you want to stay efficient with how much you make for the time that you're spending. And another reason, like I mentioned before, work has been slowing down and there's kind of been too many drivers for the amount of work. This is really just a supply and demand issue, and right now we have too much supply of drivers and not enough demand of orders. The pandemic really pushed a lot of people into these gig work jobs like Uber Eats and Grubhub and DoorDash, and possibly even during this time because the economy's not doing super great and inflation's been kind of running away, people might not be ordering as much as they used to. So when you put less orders on top of more drivers, it kind of creates a problem. And honestly, from what I've seen personally, and like I said with you guys in the comments, it just seems like it's really slowed down in most areas, and for most people, it might not be worth it to do it as much anymore. I mean, personally for me, I haven't done it as much lately because I was making about $10 an hour or less, and that's way less than what I used to make, so it's obviously slowed down in my area. Another reason you might want to be looking to get out of the delivery driving industry is because it's getting more expensive. Gas and cars are both getting more expensive. Not to mention that food costs are going up too, so when people have to pay more for food, they might be more wanting to lower their tips because they don't want to pay as much. And unfortunately with a gig job, you just have no control over the price changes or how much that's going to affect you, because in any other business, if prices went up, you would charge more to make sure that you could make the same amount you were. But what we're seeing with DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats, it seems like they're going the other direction and actually cutting pay right now. It definitely seems like the delivery company's incentive is to make sure that they keep the products cheap for the customers and not as much that they keep the drivers, because there's already so many of them. I've already made a video explaining some of the issues I think the industry has with food delivery driving and the pay that they're paying the drivers. There's kind of a lot to unpack there, so I'm not really going to talk about as much here. And the last reason you might want to be finding more work is just because you want to move on, or maybe because you're tired of delivery driving. Because let's be honest, this is really more of a part-time thing. Sure, you can do it full-time in some areas, and I've even done it full-time myself for years, but I think right now the way that this is going, this is more just turning into a part-time job that's not a career. But you also might just want to be changing the area of work you're in because you're bored of doing this, and that's a very valid reason to want to change too. So those are just some of the reasons you might want to be changing and looking for alternatives to delivery driving. But now let's get into some of those options for different jobs that you could be doing instead of delivery driving. Now, doing food delivery driving is not the only gig work job. There's a whole bunch of other things out there that you could do. I actually made a video called The Best Side Hustles of 2021 that you could check out on my channel, and that covers a whole bunch of stuff that you could look into to see if those jobs work for you. And that other video talks about stuff like dog walking or babysitting or house cleaning, so make sure to check that out after the video because it's got a whole bunch of things you could try. But starting out, one of the first jobs I would say that most people already know, and it's probably not much different than delivery driving, is just doing Uber or Lyft or something instead of food delivery driving. But of course most of you already know about that, so let's go on to some of the things that you might not have thought about. So one of the big industries that I would recommend going into that I actually am part of myself is is sales. Year after year, there's more and more buying online, and the pandemic last year has really pushed that, so there's even more buying. Now, you could always start out here with doing stuff on like Facebook or Etsy, or maybe even Craigslist. That stuff usually won't go to doing a lot of sales, but it's a good way to start doing some selling and learning. But the main place that I would recommend getting into sales would be eBay or Amazon. I've been on eBay selling for over a decade, and I cannot recommend it more to people because there's just so much opportunity for things you could sell on there. And I would recommend selling things that you yourself are probably interested in, that you already know a lot about, because then you can kind of learn the price ranges and know if you're finding something that's a good deal that you could sell. And of course, the last thing with sales is you could just start a website and sell anything you're interested in. Maybe you're good at making something, or maybe you have a good idea for something you could sell. There's so much you could do, but a website is a really good way that you can get started selling. And the thing I like about these options is you still get to maintain a lot of flexibility in your workday, and the income potential for doing these is way higher than doing something like Grubhub or DoorDash or Uber Eats. So the next area I would recommend is getting into a trade skill or doing something like handiwork or landscaping. There's actually been a pretty big decline in the amount of people working trade skills and stuff like that. And just like we're seeing with delivery driving, while there's too many drivers pushes the pay down, we see the same thing with these trade skills where there's less workers that is pushing the pay up. And these jobs don't have to be something that you work for someone else. If you already have a skill or you can teach yourself a new skill, you can go out and be a freelancer and do these things for yourself. I've actually been a handyman for years. That's what I did for a long time before I ever did delivery driving. And I can tell you, if you find a good area to do it, you can definitely have a huge income potential there. And again, this is another thing that can kind of keep that flexibility and your decision on how much you want to work it or not. Not to mention too, there are some gig work jobs for this like TaskRabbit and Handy. TaskRabbit is an app that actually I've never been able to do because they've never been in my area, but I've heard that they're pretty good. Handy, on the other hand, is one that I have done and had a bad experience with, but some people say they have good experiences with it. And I do have a video reviewing Handy if you want to check that out. But honestly, I think this area is a really good industry to get into, and it's definitely going to make you a lot of money if you have the skills and find the right area to do it. So the next option would be just to start a business. Now, a lot of those things I just listed were kind of starting a business, but this could be pretty much anything you want to do. And this isn't something that's usually going to be quick money. Usually starting a business is a long-term thing. But out of all these options, starting your own business obviously has the highest earning potential. And this still helps you keep flexibility and actually helps you maintain even more control over your job. Now, don't get me wrong, starting a business is not an easy thing. But think of some areas where your skills are and where you might see a hole in the market that you could fill to do a business yourself. Don't forget that apps like Grubhub and DoorDash and stuff were people doing that exact thing. And if you do end up starting a business, let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear what kind of business you're starting. And the last suggestion I have for an alternative to delivery driving would be to get a real job, because right now there are many jobs open and a lot of them are paying a lot better than they used to. Ever since the pandemic, I've seen so many now hiring signs. And sure, these jobs won't usually have the flexibility you're used to doing something like delivery driving, but the upside there is that you're going to have a lot more steady pay. You may even have some benefits working for these companies, and it's not like you're tied to these jobs. If you work them for a time, you can always quit and then go do something else. But it's just an option I do want to throw out there, because I think a lot of people write off those kind of jobs when maybe right now they could be good jobs to be working. Which brings me to my next point, how you can make sure you're staying efficient to how much you're being paid, to how much you're working. Staying flexible during economic shifts is something you definitely need to pay attention to. Things change all the time, especially when we've had so much stuff going up and down in the past years. So don't tie yourself down to one industry thinking that that's the best because you've already researched it in the past, because things could change pretty quickly on you. For instance, delivery driving was a real booming gig job in the past years, and I personally found it very early on, and I think that's why I did so well with it for so long. But I think what we might be seeing is the growth phase on a lot of these companies is starting to slow, and companies are cutting back to start making profits, especially the ones that are now on the stock market, which is understandable. I mean, companies need to make profit after a while. There's a lot of variables and speculation with the delivery driving market, but I think what it comes down to is just the gig work of delivery driving is not what it used to be. Now, personally, I'm not saying I'm fully done with delivery driving, and I don't think you should really write it off completely either, because who knows, maybe this stuff will change back and these jobs will start to be really well paying again. But having these alternatives to work for, even when it was good, is always a good idea. And honestly, the truth is, I haven't found much that was as good as delivery driving yet. When delivery driving paid well, it was great. It was really flexible. It was usually pretty stress-free. I said usually, there was definitely some stresses at times. But unfortunately, that's kind of the reason why so many people are working it now, because people realized how great it was. I always say make hay while the sun is shining. Now, I actually have no idea what that means, but I do know that you need to work these jobs as much as you can while they're good. Because many times the beginning stages of these companies are the best times to work for them and make a lot of money. And that's why you got to stay on the lookout for the next companies that will pop up and make hay while the sun is shining. Or not shining if you work at night. The economy is constantly moving and changing, so you got to make sure you don't get stuck. Imagine thinking back in 2019, you were going to have just the best career with Blockbuster. Oh, I miss it so much. The fact is, you got to stay fluid and ready to change based on where the economy's going. Don't tie yourself down to just one job and be prepared to follow wherever that money's flowing to. Always work towards growing and making yourself more valuable as a worker. And I would say the money will follow you after you do that, but that's not fully the truth because you actually do need to go out and find it. So that's what I got for you guys today. I know this video might be a little different than what I normally talk about, but I do want to encourage you guys that I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, always switching from one job to the next, trying to follow where the money is the best or where I work the best. And it can be a hard thing to figure out where it is that you exactly fit or what jobs are going to work well for you at that time. But if you keep trying, I think you'll find it. The main thing to remember is that there are a lot of options for work out there, so don't get stuck in one job that you don't like or doesn't pay well. If you guys have any other ideas of work alternatives to delivery driving, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear any ideas people have for different things you could do, because new things are being added every day, and who knows when you watch this video, maybe a year down the road, gig work farming will be a thing. I don't know. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys liked the video, remember to do the cheapest thing you can today. Tap that like button. Also subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more content like this, delivery driving and making money and saving money. And I will see you guys in the next video. And remember, stay cheap.
Hey, you better be saving that money. Don't you be spending it now. You're still here watching this? You might as well just subscribe. Why would you not at this point?